went to the RSL the other night and had a very nice night's entertainment. Beryl, that's the wife, came along too. Beryl's not a drinker, but she had a shandy. She put in quite a reasonable quantity of time yarning with Norm Purvis's good lady, and I had a beer with old Norm and some of the other chappies there. I don't say no to the occasional odd glass. And Ian Preston, an old friend of mine, got up and sang a few humorous numbers, not too blue on account of the women folk, so that altogether it was a really nice type of night's entertainment for us both. We called it a day round about 10ish. Didn't want to make it too late at night, as Beryl had a big wash in her hands on the Monday morning, and I had to be in town pretty early, stock taking and one thing and another. Well, we got back to Gallipoli Crescent about 20 past, and Beryl and I went to bed. Oh, we were very glad we hadn't made it too late a night on the Sunday, because the Chapmans were expecting us over on the Monday night for a couple of hours to look at some slides of their trip. They're a very nice type of person, and some of the coloured pictures he'd taken up north were a real picture. Vi Chapman had gone to a lot of trouble with the savouries, and altogether it was a really lovely night's entertainment for the two of us. Educational too. Well, round about 10 I said we'd have to be toddling. You see, we didn't want to make it too late a night because Tuesday was the tennis club picture night and Beryl had a couple of tickets. Well, there's not much I can say about the Tuesday, except that it was a really lovely night's entertainment. We're not ones for the pictures as a rule, but when we do go, we like to see a good, bright show. After all, there's enough unhappiness and sadness in the world without going to see it in the theatre. Had a bit of strife parking the vehicle. You know what it's like up around that intersection near the Civic. Anyway, we found a posse in the long run, just when we were beginning to think we might miss the blessed newsreel. The newsreel had a few shots of some of the poorer type of Italian housing condition on the continent, and it made Beryl and I realise just how fortunate we were to have the comfort of our own home and all the little amenities round the home that make life easier for the women folk and the men folk generally in the home. We left soon after interval, as the next show wasn't the best, and I was feeling a bit on the tired side. Besides, Beryl was expecting her sister and her husband over for 500 on the Wednesday, and we didn't want to make it too late a night. So Beryl and I went to bed. Had to slip out of the office on the Wednesday lunch hour to get a few cashews to put round the card table. Beryl was running up a batch of sponge fingers with the passion fruit icing. There's no doubt about it. Beryl makes a lovely sponge finger. Well, the card night went on very nicely indeed, except that Beryl's sister Lorna got a bit excited during the 500 and knocked over a cup of tea and a curried egg sandwich on the new carpet. Oh, she was very apologetic, but as I said to Beryl later, being sorry won't buy you a new wall-to-wall. And you know what curried egg does to a burgundy Axminster. By and large, though, all things considered, and taking everything into account, it was a pretty nice night's entertainment. They left early-ish, and Beryl and I went to bed. Thursday was a bit quiet at the office, and I was just as glad because I'd been feeling a bit more on the tired side than usual. Beryl had another fitting that night. She's having a new frock made for Jeff and Janice's wedding at Holy Trinity on the 21st, and she wants to wear something a bit special. You know what the women folk are like. Anyway, I dropped her off at the dressmaker's and away to lodge. It was a bit on the latish side when I got home, and I went straight to bed, and we had a very nice night rest. I'm always glad when Friday comes. Beryl and I usually have a nice quiet night in the home. It's the only chance I get to view the TV. There's usually a good story on of a Friday night, or else an educational quiz. Beryl had been down to the town hall library and got herself a good mystery, so that between the two of us we had a very nice night's home entertainment. But we'd had a run of late nights and we were both pretty fagged. So round about 10, I filled the hottie, and Beryl and I went to bed. I was glad we hadn't made it too late a night, as we had to be down at the junction pretty early on a Saturday morning for the weekend shopping. Had a bit of strife parking the vehicle, though. You know what it's like at the junction on a Saturday morning. However, I found a nice posse in the long run, just when we were beginning to think we might miss the blessed butcher. I had a few minutes' worry, though. I lost Beryl in the Foodorama, but she had the good sense to go back to the car. I got home in time for a bite of lunch, and then I had to whiz out again to the football. Beryl stayed at home to do the weekend baking. Had the usual trouble parking the vehicle. You know what it's like at Memorial Park on a Saturday, Arvo. However, found a posse in the long run just when I was thinking I'd be late for the bounce. Oh, you wouldn't catch me missing an important semi. Beryl had packed me a nice thermos of Milo, and I was pretty glad of it. It's very cold and blowy in the outer. Had a bit of trouble shifting the vehicle. You know what it's like at Memorial Park after a big match, utility wedged right there in front of me. However, I got it out in the long run, just when I was beginning to think Beryl would have to wait tea. By the time I got home, it was that blowy. The Herald was all over the front lawn. Next door had invited us in to see if we liked their new 25-inch. But I'd had a very nice afternoon's entertainment, and Beryl wasn't that keen. So we made an early night of it and went to bed. Always clean the car of a Sunday morning and do a bit of pottering in the garden. Bit worried about those roadies. Had the roast midday, as we only like a light tea if we're going out of a Sunday night. Saves a big wash-up. I'm really looking forward to the RSL tonight because if you can go by experience, it ought to be a very nice night's entertainment.
When the 25th of April has come and gone again, and another Anzac Day has passed us by, a host of wartime memories crowd into the brain, and every memory brings with it a sigh. The years have rolled by since our youth and our heyday. Once the weekend is over, it's nearly Norm's payday. Time flies when you think that it's 17 years since VJ Day. When ours was a war-saving street, a humoresque street, Moonee Ponds, and we led the Jap to defeat. With our Commonwealth war savings bonds, in a homestead and cottage we stayed behind, a calm and courageous bunch. We glued cellophane on each plate glass window pane as we cut the kiddies' Oslo lunch. Oh, we grew our own silver beat in humoresque street and the Moonee Ponds. And those were the days of cracked wheat and lightly buttered wholemeal scones. In Scout Hall and schoolroom we did our bit. Our duties we never shunned. All that puddle of aftershave, soap and toothpaste we gave to the local comforts fund. No sacrifice was too great. One meal a day without meat, it's a tale they tell in the RSL, when ours was a war-saving street. Though we had to shop with ration books and stores were short of stocks, Australian women helped to turn the tide by collecting fat for Britain and knitting khaki socks. A pair a week on 5 needles was my pride. Now I don't want to sound a conceited old duffer, but our generation was just so much tougher than yours. These young people don't know what it feels like to suffer. When ours was a war-saving street, with a sign on our telegraph pole, wedgies we wore on our feet, choices and our hair in a victory roll. Remember hardship, privation, we knew thy names in kitchen and shop, suburban, but it freed us from care when we heard on the air Marilyn and Diana Durban. Ours was a firm liberal seat in humoresque street, Moonee Ponds. Chocolates were rather a treat, and we never had enough coupons. The guest producer, the mock cream sponge, the butterless recipe. Our lives were scarred like that patch in the yard where the air raid shelter used to be. History can sometimes repeat
don't know whether I want to go back to Australia yet or not. It's mad, isn't it? It's nice in England. I mean, it's really super, but Mummy keeps writing saying, when are you coming home? And 6 months is quite a long time, isn't it? I'm sharing a flat in London with a few other Australian lasses at the moment, and it's really brilliant. I think it's the most economical way, really. The really brilliant thing about it is that we all come and go exactly as we like and nobody cares. Everyone puts in so much a week and it all works out brilliantly if you don't mind things being a bit rough and ready. Mind you, shopping isn't easy here. Meat is just ridiculous. 12 and 6 to 8 and 6 a pound for steak, and chops work out at about 2 and 6 to 4 and 6 each. Mind you, bread and starchy things are very cheap, but you do miss meat. You see, you can't really make it up on eggs, because when we arrived they were 6 and 6 a dozen. Now let's see, what's that in Australian money? Take steak, 12 and 6 to 50 and 6 a pound in sterling, that's over $1.60 to $1.90 a pound. A packet of Rothmans costs 7 shillings, that's 80 cents for a packet of cigarettes, isn't it wicked? Mind you, I must admit there are compensations living in London. For instance, cheese is cheaper. Things have been a bit hectic in the flat just lately, particularly since June and Alwyn left to hitch round Belgium and the twins moved in. Patsy's leaving for Spain in a fortnight's time, and I hope Miggsy will have got back from Scandinavia by then so that she can have the stretcher in the hall that used to be Norma's before she went to Australia last October. As it is, I don't know where we're going to put Janice when she arrives. She's hitching round France at the moment with Jeannie, and I don't want to be on a spot like I was when Robin and Gwenda descended on us out of the blue that time. We had to put sleeping bags down in the kitchen, and even then they stayed on for 3.5 weeks. It is a problem. It's a superb flat, mind you. It's very central and there's everything provided. The only drawback is we've got to take the rubbish down 3 flights. There's an enormous lounge room that's brilliant. That's the room Trish and Wendy share with the twins at the moment. Wendy's a physiotherapist, by the way, and Trish does shorthand typing. The lounge has got one of those couches that fold out to make a bed, and when we pushed the armchairs into the corner, there was bags of room for a divan and 2 lilos. There's the hall off that where Bev and Patsy sleep. Bev's a physio too, and Patsy's a hairdresser. There's just enough room in the hall to squeeze a stretcher if somebody's really in a spot and they don't mind odd bods climbing all over them to get to the front door. The bathroom's through to the right, and Miggs used to call it Flinders Street Station because, honestly, it's bedlam in the mornings, especially if Sandra gets in there first. Sandra's a school teacher. I've seen the kitchen, haven't I? Mummy'd have an absolute fit if she saw it before we'd had one of our Saturday morning clean-ups. When Robin and Gwenda were bunked down there, you could hardly get to the sink, and you can imagine what the place looked like after Sue had made one of her special chocolate cakes. Sue's an osteopath, by the by. The nicest, most brilliant room in the flat really is the bedroom. It was a bit on the cramped side at first, but we got ourselves organised, and now it comfortably sleeps 5. Alison used to call it the dorm. At the moment there are only 4 of us there, but I don't know whether Helen's coming back or not. Helen is a comptometrist, and she's left some of her cases here, but no one seems to know what her plans are. Gillian had a card from Edinburgh about the middle of last week, but she didn't say anything about coming back to stay in London. If only people did know. There's millions of other Australian girls looking for accommodation. We don't know whether to say yes or no. I know Jenny, for one, would adore to stay with us. She's a mothercraft nurse, and she's terribly lonely in London, naturally. But Helen's just as likely to turn up at any tick of the clock and get all peeved because we didn't keep a bed for her. With all the excitement, I'll be sad to leave dear old London in a way. And we've had an awful lot of fun here, and you're always meeting new people. Last Friday night, Bev brought home a terrifically sweet couple from Geelong, and we invited the 2 Sydney girls from upstairs because they're always complaining they never meet people. They said to expect them if we saw them, but Sandra and I could see they were thrilled to bits. I honestly don't understand girls who get homesick in London. There's so much to do in our flat, you never get time to think. And Patsy's mother sends us big airmail parcels with the Woman's Weekly and the Bulletin, so we never really feel we're out of things. Just before Marilyn Woodbridge went back to Australia, she brought some rather divine clothes, and we had a superb evening trying them all on. There was a brilliant bone linen frock she'd brought on the continent that was so me I could have wept. She really had some beautiful things. She looked really superb in that reindeer coat. Mind you, she must have spent a small fortune on herself, and Sue told me she'd never had to worry. It sounds silly, I suppose, but I don't think I'd like to have as much money as that. Mind you, I don't care what you say. I like Marilyn. I suppose I'll have to start thinking about my own shopping soon. Mummy wrote saying she'd be very cross if I spent money on her, but just to get some little thought for Nana and the aunties. I've got Mummy's present anyway. It's one of those divine Swiss chalet musical boxes with a brilliant little section in it for cigarettes. I know she'll adore it. The other day I went on a shopping expedition with Elwyn. She's a phys ed instructress and she's going back to Australia on the Strathclyde next Wednesday. I could see she'd made up her mind to buy a whole set of silk scarves with views of London, and I just didn't have the heart to tell her I'd seen exactly the same thing in George's before I left. She also insisted on buying a box of Sheffield silver grapefruit spoons. Quite nice, but a bit Mrs. Everage, I thought. When you've been abroad, people like to receive something a bit different, don't they? Anyway, if I don't get all my shopping organised soon, I'll be in a real spot. I've just got to be back in Australia on the 24th of February at the very latest, because Jocelyn needs Ringdon on the fair sky on the 31st, and I definitely know she's planning to give me a big welcome home party at her place. Besides, I promised Val ages ago I'd give her a fabulous welcome home party. She's arriving back in Melbourne on the Osova on the 26th, which is only a week before Rosemary leaves on one of the Strath boats, and I'd hate not to be there to see her off. To make matters worse, Miriam Mason's giving a combined farewell party to Rosemary and a welcome home party to Max and Ailsa, who will have just got back from the States on the Southern Cross about that time. They gave me a marvellous send-off themselves, so the least I can do is to invite them to the farewell party I'm giving to Shirl and Monica, who are sailing on the Neptunia on March the 3rd. I only hope this won't clash with Tony and Jennifer's wedding on the 30th, or the farewell party Mr. and Mrs. Patterson are giving Lecky before she flies on the Pace Setter on the 3rd of March. The trouble is, if I book on the Aurelia, I'll get back to Melbourne too late. And if I leave London on Boxing Day and take up that booking on the Otranto, I'll miss the brilliant party Miggs and Libby are giving here to welcome Jeanette and Marjorie, who arrived at Southampton on the Orchids on January the 15th. I'd adore to see everyone, of course, but I can't do the impossible. It's funny to think I'll be back in Melbourne in such a short time. I don't know what I'll do. It'll be all so different.
Hello there. More and more of the boys are going up to surf this summer. Whatever walk of life you come from, whether you're an engineering student from the uni or a part-time male model, there's nothing like strapping the surfing sticks to the back of the G and thrashing it up the coast to crack a few humpies. Last year was King Man, a real gas. A whole multitude of us, Nipper Dixon, Brett the Whipjacker, Rocky Shark, Paddles Hackett, Midget Pike and Squeaky Hudson all pile into Squeaky's drinking truck and hammered it up the coast to ride the planks. We had a keg in the boot and a few dozen tubes between us, so there was much chundering en route. The surf was fantastic. You should have seen those greenies. When we weren't zipping, cutting and flicking the boards through tunnels and wipeouts or riding the odd bombie, we're on the beach or in the surf club cracking the tubes or demolishing a 12. One fantastic night we thrashed the cars down to Whale Beach Road and crashed a turn. In 5 minutes, we'd torn the place apart. You never see so much broken glass in all your life. We got away with a bottle of the hard stuff, a few dozen tubes, and a couple of pigs from the Prince Alfred. The word got round there was a turn at the Trock, so we burned out of Sydney, climbed in through the gents, and turned over a few tables. The hoods were there like a flash, but we got away in the cars, went to Hyde Park, rolled a few queers, won a few cufflinks. I've never chuckled so much in all my life as I did that night last summer. Oh, it was King Man. There's no doubt about it. You cannot beat the great Australian outdoor life. Oh, I was down by Manly Pier, drinking tubes of ice-cold beer with a bucket full of prawns upon me knee. But when I'd swallowed the last prawn, I had a technicolor yawn, and I chunned it in the old Pacific Sea. Drink it up, crack another dozen tubes and prawns with me. If you want to throw your voice, mate, you won't have any choice but to chunder in the old Pacific Sea. I was sitting in the surf when a mate of mine called Murph asked if he could crack a tube or two with me. The bastard barely swallowed it when he went for the big spit, and he shunned it in the old Pacific Sea. Oh, drink it up, crack another dozen tubes and prawns with me. If you want to throw your voice, mate, you won't have any choice but to chunder in the old Pacific Sea. I've had liquid laughs in bars, and I've hurled from moving cars, and I've chuckled when and where it suited me. But if I could choose a spot to regurgitate me lot, then I'd chunder in the old Pacific Sea. Come on, drink it up, juggle and crack another dozen tubes and prawns with me. If you want to throw your voice, mate, you won't have any choice but to chunder in the old Pacific Sea. Excuse I. The snow scene's really fantastic in Oz. I've just swung in from the continent, and the snow community here tell me I really missed something Queen's birthday weekend. I blew across to Europe, about 6 months ago to do a bit of business for the old man, landed at Napoli, took delivery of an Alfa in Milano, then did the snow circuit. Took in most of the Arlberg and the Kitzbühel, went over to St. Moritz, swung on to Paris, swung on to Paris, and finished up the season in Chamonix. I picked up a new pair of white stars, a pair of Scott poles, a few Icelandic beanies, gamma gloves, and a new pair of Bogners. Shipped the car back from Londres, London, and flew home via the States, doing a bit of business for the old man en route. It's an absolute certainty that some of our best snowfields in Oz are on a par with anything I saw on the continent. We've even got the instructors. I skied all over and I didn't strike one continental ski instructor who could better our own Heinz or Helmut up at Buller. When I hit town, I did a bit of business for the old man and then belted up to Buller in the VW Combi with a few great old mates of mine from school. There was Simon Cook, Andrew Fox Russell, Chris Craig and Blair Peyton Smythe. There'd been a good fall, so we got in a bit of fantastic skiing, but Blair's nutcrackers slipped on Fanny's finish, and he ended up in Mansfield Hospital with a broken leg. The rest of us blew into the Portsea hut for a few of the old glue vines. Then we all got into our après gear and had a few more at the Bull's Blood Bar, swinging on to the Nomad Lodge for the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence dinner dance. Drew couldn't stay because he had to blow downtown to do a bit of business for his old man, but Simon and I made it with a couple of little snow bunnies, and Chris got shacked up with a fantastic little snow widow whose bloke was downtown picking up a bit of business for his old man. Chris had helped her on the beginner's slope, and he reckoned she was a fantastic little performer. Double bunks, but no complications. I was all for doing the circuit and swinging onto Falls Creek and then Threadbow, Perisher, Smiggin Holes and Charlotte Pass. But a couple of the fellas had to pull out and do a bit of business for their old man, and Sue and Sal had a private with Heinz and Helmut at 5. So Roger, Bronwyn, Colin, Trish, Craig, Rabina, Jude and myself took the snow without them. At Falls Creek there was an average depth of 8 inches, with the village and summer T-bars operating, and you haven't skied to try the fry pan. But Threadbow was the greatest, with a 9-inch fall on Krakenback, and that Saturday night was absolutely fantastic. We took in the Copper Kettle, the Schlussbar and Leo's, swinging onto the Eagle's Nest for the Prince Alfred Younger Set dinner dance. It was hosted by a great old mate of mine from school, who lent us his fantastic flat at Windy Corner while he blew downtown to put in an appearance at his old man's business. So we all shacked up there with stacks of the old glue vine, a few crates tinnies, a couple of little snow bunnies, and no complications. Me and a few great old mates of mine from school will be getting into our penguin gear and gunning it up there again next weekend for the dinner dance for mentally retarded children. Believe you me, it's a great life up there amongst the snow community, and you can really have a ball no matter which of the major schools you went to. Particularly if you're lucky enough to get snowed in with a stack of glue vine, a few crates of tinnies, a couple of little snow bunnies, and no complications. Every season up we go, Simon, Ross and Stephen, spearing up here to the snow, deep and crisp and even. We kicked off with a liquid lunch, though the frost was cruel, drinking glue vine with a bunch of beaut young blokes from school. But we weren't in the mood to bash the slopes. The weather got hot and sunny, so we steamed to the huts to go the grope with some little raving bunny. Tone and Russell, Drew and Bruce, Sue and Sal and Jude drank vodka and tomato juice, then went outside and spewed.
bring me glühwein, bring me beer, and a crate of ice-cold tinnies. Up we hammer every year in our Volksies and our Minis. In some cozy alpine spot, there you're sure to find us, propelling Charlies to the cot, with a queue of blokes behind us. Boulder, Thredbo, Perisher, and Mount Kosciuszko. When the say goes on the slopes, that's where blokes like us go. If you want to be a man, the pride of our young nation, grab a bird and crack a can in the land of no complication. Oh, every season up we go, Simon, Ross and Stephen, spearing up here to the snow, a deep and a crisp and even. Oh, we kick off with a liquid lunch, though the frost be cruel, drinking glühwein with a bunch of beaut young blokes from school.